Sup, everybody? This is Carrick with ACG. You might be wondering, what is Lost Ark, and why are 1.2 million people watching it be played today? I'm going to try to answer that. Sit on down, subscribe if you like these kind of videos, because this is pretty nuts. Lost Ark became available today. 1.2 million people are watching streamers play that game, and if you even remove the larger streamers from that, there is a ton of people actually playing it. The quickest answer is it's a massive ARPG, a game with a boatload of content that actually, sort of runs quite well, and a bunch of people are trying to get in it. The queue is up in the high thousands, reminding a lot of us of Final Fantasy. Here, though, it is an ARPG MMO. It's sort of Diablo mixed with true RPG fundamentals with a massive story. Whether that's good or not, we'll talk about in a second. This is from Tripod and Smilegate. It's a free-to-play game that was originally released in South Korea in 2019. Today is pretty much its first day open to the public, and as you can tell, a lot of people jumped in. The first thing is the world and the story. After you make a character, you're sent out searching for these arcs from the game's title. They're 7 massive talismans of power that can help the humans fight off the demonic hordes that are attacking, and have done so in the past, and those arcs save them. Why didn't they just keep the arcs together at the end of that last 500 years? Don't ask. Like a lot of these games, you have your various different classes. Making a character splits you down into 5 classes in this game. You have your assassin, gunner, mage, martial artist, and warrior, with 15 subclasses split between them all, like warriors becoming paladins, and mages able to pick up magical hearts and Fleetwood smack a bunch of enemies with their magical tunes. A lot of the attacks in the game do more damage if timed right as well, which causes gamers to actually be a little bit more immersed. You'll see that in some of the different special moves for the characters. Gunners have special rifle attacks. The characters like that gunner have 3 weapons. They have handguns, shotguns, and rifles, which not only does long, medium, and short-range damage like you would think, but actually has a number of specials that switch out depending on the one weapon you are using, which gives a lot of differentiation between the weapons, but also makes it so that a person doesn't get too confused with 1,000 buttons on the screen. And that's the juice in Ark when you start to look at this kind of thing. It's not just the very typical ARPG and MMO mixed together, but it has instead a large amount of input from the players who are engaging in the game alone, and that can keep you interested. But with friends in an MMO style, well, that can actually be the difference between a game that gets played a couple times and a game that gets played for years. And speaking about playing with other people in this game, you can put all kinds of synergistic combos together. They're not necessarily always called out. It's just that you can do the various different moves and see those working together on the screen, like enemies being bounced from one attack, being lit on fire, and then someone dropping a mortar on them as they land. There's a good number of switch-ups from typical ARPGs that I can see a lot of people looking at this and finding themselves quite interested. One of the subclass basically just turns into a 2-armed dude dropping double-armed lasers on enemies like a battle mech. It's pretty hard not to be fascinated by that. But you can see that Ark does carry a lot of the DNA from the other titles prior on its very bones and its very skeletons. Weapons are usually pretty small stat-based increases, and what's there, you can actually do a couple pay-to-win or pay-to-upgrade kind of features that I'm going to talk about in a second. But I do want to talk about how the quest structure is set up. So it's smaller quests, but one of the things you're going to hear a lot of people talking about, especially in those first small quests opening into the larger narrative, is how each quest moves you usually forward, which means you have an NPC who gives you the quest, and a little bit like we've seen in some other MMOs, the person that you turn in the quest to is usually not that same person. They're farther along in the location, allowing for people to make a pretty brisk, quick walk across various different places, not getting stuck too long in any one location. And as those quests branch out, you can see some footage here. You end up getting a boat, you can cross the lands, technologically advanced cities, all the way to tropical islands. The game has a lot of content and some very unique boss battles. Now, Lost Ark does have a tremendous amount of in-game content too, which is what a lot of people feel these games, when they come out of their first launch, don't have. They have PvE raids, dungeons, and your own stronghold for over 50 level players. Now, when wanting to grind up, you enter these different locations, especially especially in the end game, which is a lot about upgrading different parts on your character and getting more skills. You enter chaos dungeons that are fought in stages all over the world, and these drop basic materials for upgrading. You also have guardian raids, where you investigate a zone to find a boss that you need to fight and destroy under a time limit. It's sort of a boss mode kind of thing on those. And some people have actually stated it reminds them a little bit of a Monster Hunter kind of game, where you're just looking down on the character. But the game also puts some awesome restrictions on a lot of these battles, removing them from being that typical all-out attack. They also have a tower where you go up levels, taking out enemies consistently under a time limit, and as you keep climbing these ladders, each climbing these levels, each one has a unique reward and a unique fight there. You also get skill point potions for those that allow for you to upgrade your skills as you go into the higher levels in-game content. They also have massive dungeons and just all kinds of stuff. Almost all of your late game stuff is of course grinding, but one of the things they've done here is had multiple steps for multiple different types of these grinds. So if you do have a raid, that raid levels up and you have more enemies able to do more things. And while this isn't brand new, it does allow for gamers to jump in and not necessarily feel like, oh, it's just this raid exactly the same, but those raids level up as all the things you're getting from them levels up your character and your items. Most interestingly enough, they have a stronghold, which is not just for living in and just upgrading, though you can do both of those. It offers all manner of huge changes to the games, new places you can go, as well as your own workshop. And here you can also send your followers to do quests. We've seen that in a lot of MMOs, but it sort of condenses some of that and actually has a lot of the crafting happen at the stronghold. The answer to the original question is, why are so many people playing it? And it's because it has a ton of content. It also has about 1,000 currencies. Not 1,000, but you get my drift. It does have a lot. And it has some pretty quick and hefty quick starts if you do want to put some money down. The first is $15, but it goes as high as $99 if you want to just jump in, get yourself some pets, some special titles, and so on. But we see a lot of these games come out. Some of them catch on, some of them don't. And when you even remove the overall Twitch streamer number, you still see a lot of people playing this, and there's a lot of positive discussion around it, even with the huge amount of queues and all of that. And the very reason is because they do offer a ton of content, even if you don't pay. It's going to be very interesting to see if this continues such hot numbers, because this thing is smashing through records. It's pretty impressive, and I gotta say, when you see a bunch of characters on screen, let alone just one character doing incredible moves, but when you get a bunch of characters on screen and you're fighting with your friends and pulling off all these specials, pretty damn crazy looking. And that variation in the locations helps dramatically. Those kind of things are something that a lot of us feel where we go into a game, and especially in-game content, feels regurgitative. You're just consistently going through the same thing. And it's not magically brand new here, but the game's massive world, unique locations, and various ways to get them, including getting that sailing ship and finding tropical islands everywhere, even though you start a lot of your battles actually on the mainland. There's a ton of stuff to explore, and it gives you a lot as you continue to move forward, and I think that is a boon to this game. It'll be very interesting to see how much people play it and if they stick to it. So anyway, that's it for me. I hope you guys liked the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. Make sure to check out Twitter, Patreon, all that other stuff. Peace out, everybody. I hope you have an awesome week.